of thousands of Central Texans are still without power right now.
Austin Energy alone, 157,000 of them. Encore, 149,000, but 26,000 are in the Round Rock, Georgetown area alone. Pedernales, 40,000 meters are up. But we're going to focus right now on Austin Energy. Austin, Travis County leaders is about to give us an update on the outages and the recovery. Let's take a live listen in.
By Travis County Judge Andy Brown and Austin City Manager Spencer Cronk, as well as leadership from several city departments and utilities, including Austin Energy, so that we can provide an update on the winter storm response and recovery. My name's Kirk Watson. I'm mayor of the city of Austin, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Councilmember Leslie Poole, who also chairs the Austin Energy Advisory Committee of the Austin City Council. It's an understatement to say it's been just a challenging 3 days for our area, but we've been making steady progress, and we want to ease concerns by addressing different questions today and be able to answer your questions. First, I want to thank those who have been working tirelessly to keep residents safe and warm, opening shelters and warming centers, responding to calls for assistance, clearing roadways, and working to restore power under somewhat brutal conditions. I also want to acknowledge that, like so many of our residents, I've been frustrated. I've been frustrated by the lack of power in our homes, including mine, and I've been frustrated and disappointed in the communication that I feel like should have been better with the people of the city. A press conference like this to answer questions should have happened before now, and my commitment to you is that we will see another one of these probably this afternoon or late this evening so that we can keep people up to date. But we'll address those issues about how we communicate when we get past the life and safety issues that we still face. I want people to know, though, that we intend to assure that lack of communication does not happen, and the protocols of communication in a disaster will be reassessed and recreated. I also want to say thank you very much to Austin residents for their patience, for their resilience, and their commitment to each other. Neighbors have been helping neighbors during this difficult time. This storm event, leaving so many without heat, light, and with a feeling of insecurity, comes on the heels of Winter Storm Uri and the anxiety and the trauma that we all experienced then. I know that top of mind for everyone is restoring power to each and every home, and crews are working even as we speak and have through the night, and they've been working for the past 24 hours plus to do just that. Because of the length and the nature of this storm, it has proven very challenging. Initially, it was hoped that all power would be restored in 12 to 24 hours, but as we now know and we anticipate, it'll be late tomorrow before we have substantially restored power to everyone across the city. Our city manager, Spencer Cronk, is joined by, as I indicated, several of his department directors and leadership, including Jackie Sargent of Austin Energy, who's going to be able to provide you with more details and answer questions. But before we do that, I'd first like to invite our Travis County Judge, Andy Brown, to say a few words. Judge?
Thanks. Good morning. I'm Travis County Judge Andy Brown. I want to start by saying thank you to the Travis County staff, City of Austin staff, Austin Energy staff and workers, and the staff from the 3 other energy companies that serve Travis County, mainly outside of the city limits. Their hard work is helping us recover from this winter storm. And I know that the mayor and Spencer are going to discuss operations of Austin Energy, as is the leader of Austin Energy. I just want the public to know that the Travis County Office of Emergency Management is also in contact with the 3 additional power providers that serve Travis County, which are Pedernales Electric Cooperative, Bluebonnet Electric Cooperative, and Encore Electric. They're all working diligently to make sure that your lights turn on when you flip that switch. Additionally, Travis County's transportation and natural resources crews are working throughout the county to keep roads passable so energy crews can help people in need. From treating roads to clearing fallen trees, our staff is doing everything they can to ensure emergency response and energy crews face fewer obstacles as they respond to your calls and needs. And while we see the physical toll all around us, for some of our neighbors, this frozen flash is opening old wounds. This week has brought back unpleasant memories of Winter Storm Uri for many of us, and ironically, today is Groundhog Day. Just like 2 years ago, my house lost power, and I had to tell my kids that it'll be fine, and I know that they remembered the last time this happened. How could they forget? How could any of us forget? This week replaced the sounds of pipes bursting and water trickling with branches snapping, wood crashing, and ice shattering. My kids asked me a lot of questions, mainly, is this the same as last time? How long is this going to go? I told them that we need to have patience and we need to trust the emergency crews and the teams that are working all across the county and the city. While we sit inside, those workers are out in the cold working to keep the lights on and working to restore power to everybody in Travis County, and they deserve our respect and our patience. This has been a long and difficult stretch for us as a community, so for those of you who are also struggling with processing this event, I know that you are not alone. Lean on your family, lean on your friends and neighbors to make sure that you take care of your mental health, your physical health, and theirs. We were fortunate enough to be able to spend the night at my mom's house last night because our house had lost power yesterday. If you can, and if it's safe, please check on your neighbors. And just like we did last time, we're going to get through this together. And I'll now pass it over to City Manager Spencer Cronk. Thank you.
Well, again, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And I want to first acknowledge the stress and frustration that our entire community is experiencing through this historic freeze. I want to also assure you that we here at the city have been working through these days and nights and will continue to do so to address a multitude of issues and quickly address this ever-evolving situation. I want to echo the mayor and the judge's comments about my appreciation for the city staff and county staff and our partners who continue to work tirelessly through these times. We have, as a city and county, established cold weather shelters and warming centers. We've organized transportation to those locations in partnership with community groups to address the needs of some of our most vulnerable residents. We continue to provide shelter and reprieve from the weather, and we will keep these centers open as long as they are needed. I want to once again assure you that the hundreds of city and county and community staff and employees that are working to contribute to the steady progress we continue to make every day will continue to do so. We are committed to supporting the people of Austin and keeping you safe, and we thank you for your support as we navigate this experience together. I want to acknowledge the many directors that we have here with us who will be able to answer questions. We have Ken Snipes with our Austin Resource Recovery, Richard Mendoza with Austin Transportation, James Snow with Austin Public Works, Shay Ralston with Austin Water, Jeanette Bechet with Austin Public Health, and Juan Ortiz and Eric Carter with Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And after we hear from our General Manager, Jackie Sargent from Austin Energy, we will open up for questions, and any of those departments will be able to answer for you. Thank you very much. Jackie.
Thank you, Spencer. We know that this has been a very frustrating situation for customers without power, and I want you to know that we feel your frustration. Our crews are in the field working safely and quickly as possible to restore power from icy conditions that have been causing falling trees and down power lines. We have 85 crews in service with an additional 32 crews from other utilities that joined us yesterday. We are expecting more crews from Houston to arrive this afternoon. Our crews restored power to more than 113,000 customers in the last day. Yet we are seeing additional ice and tree limbs knock out power again. Sometimes on the same circuit, our crews have just restored. Our crews are frustrated too. We appreciate the community's patience as our crews work to safely restore power. Please keep them in your prayers. This has been a very challenging winter event. We are experiencing one of the most widespread ice storms to hit Austin, and certainly one of the worst. The weather-related outages we're experiencing are localized outages caused by ice accumulation. These outages have nothing to do with the power grid. These extended outages are what happens when ice starts to weigh down on tree limbs, power lines, and utility poles. Many of you have seen the incredible damage caused by fallen tree branches in your own yard or on our streets, just as I did traveling here this morning. Multiply that by over 437 square miles of service territory to understand and get a sense of the magnitude of the magnitude and impact that we and our crews are dealing with. And please know that we are working as quickly as possible to restore power. We've gotten a lot of questions about the outage map specifically. Because it is updating every 10 minutes, it may not or may not show specific addresses and instead just show a general area. In addition, as we restore power to some areas, other outages occur in different areas, and the map can sometimes make it look like we're not making any progress. We are working as quickly as possible to restore power for all customers. Because additional outages are coming online as we restore power, it may look like no progress is being made. But we are restoring power and 113,000 customers so far. It feels like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. At this point, because of the forecast of rising temperatures, we are expecting to be wrapping up on major restoration efforts by Friday evening. I'm thankful to the Austin Energy team who has been working tirelessly around the clock on this restoration effort. We are doing everything we can to quickly and safely restore power. However, customers should be aware that there may be some instances where they will still need to have an electrician make some repairs to their service so we can restore power safely to their specific home or residence. And finally, we also want to make sure customers are safe. People should never touch down power lines or a tree limb making contact with a down power line. Assume that down power lines are energized and stay away from them. Do not try to clear trees away from your lines by yourself. Call 911 to report down power lines. Thank you.
All right, folks, with that, I'll open it up for questions. As a reminder, I will be calling on you. I'll get started over here with Spectrum.
Sure. Can you answer why the Austin power lines aren't buried? And also, how do you decide which areas of the city to work on first to restore power?
So the first question, why aren't Austin Energy's power lines not buried? That's a question that all utilities get asked. Historically, power lines were put above ground. Over time, there have been opportunities to bury power lines, and as new developments are created, we're able to do that more successfully. It's very expensive to retrofit a system and go back and bury power lines. Very expensive, billions of dollars. A lot of areas in our region have limestone. It's not like you're in Iowa and you can just plow a trench and put the lines in. A lot of our services are behind homes, in alleyways or back in between lots. That becomes very challenging as well. Buried power lines have their own challenges. They're vulnerable to flooding, and if they do have an outage, it's more difficult to identify where the break in the power line is, where the damage has occurred, and then you have to excavate, find that, and replace cable, and you might have to replace long lengths of cable. And so the outages that customers experience from a buried line are typically much longer than from overhead lines.
Okay, sir.
Last night you guys,
There was a second part.
Very good. Yeah, how do you decide, because they're scattered throughout the whole city, how do you decide which area gets service first?
So we look at and we prioritize our restoration efforts and focus on, first of all, critical loads. We want to get those loads restored as quickly as possible. And then we look at where are we going to be able to get the most people's power back on. So as you look at our outage map, you'll see outages listed and it will say number of customers impacted. We're going to go after those ones with the largest numbers so that we can get as many people restored as quickly and safely as possible. And then we will get to the other outages. That allows us to focus our crews in specific areas and help the most people in the shortest amount of time.
Okay, Ted.
You guys mentioned last night it wasn't a vegetation maintenance issue, but because of the ice we were expecting, should trees have been trimmed back even more, and should mutual aid have been called sooner?
So we did prepare and reach out to bring in crews ahead of time. We were following the weather forecast, and it wasn't expected that the ice amount would be as significant. And so the conditions deteriorated, and that created even more ice than anticipated. Vegetation management is something that we're very focused on. Over the past several years, we have increased our budget and our focus to trim trees. We could really use help in that area with getting our residents to understand the importance of vegetation management, to allow our crews in to get the vegetation management done. We can always be better, but in this circumstance, I don't know what you saw when you were driving here this morning, but the amount of weight that has accumulated on the vegetation is probably a historic extreme, and that has caused significant challenges for us, along with ice on equipment. Some of you may have had to leave your cars outside, and as that ice accumulated, you couldn't just go and open the car door and get in and turn the defrost on, right? You had to take extraordinary efforts to get the ice broken and away, and to get the key so you could get into the car, and get the handle so you didn't break the handle off, and then work to get the ice off of the car. So we're experiencing some of those same challenges as well, but we really need help from the community to allow us to do better vegetation management. Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify with the mutual aid, were crews on standby before the storm, and then you guys called to actually mobilize them and activate them to come here right away? What exactly was that process?
So it wasn't until we were into the situation and understood the extent of the damage, but we do have relationships with our neighboring utilities. We have actually formed a group called the Texas Public Power Corridor, where we are working together so that we can, in these instances when an emergency declaration by the governor hasn't been made, that we can call on each other to get support. And so we did that as quickly as possible, and we're very grateful to those utilities that are supporting us.
Okay, do,
This is specifically for Mayor Watson. If you were so frustrated with the lack of communication from Austin Energy, why wasn't a press conference called earlier? And for Austin Energy, what could have been done better to clarify communication?
Well, I think being able to answer people's questions is the way you best do that, and I have urged that we do that on a more frequent basis. I will admit that I deferred to folks so that they could be doing the jobs that they needed to do and were expert in the area. But I am frustrated, and I know others are frustrated. This needs to happen on a more frequent basis, but we ought to focus now on the life and safety issues, get those out of the way, and then we'll come up with a new way to do this so that we're able to answer the public's questions in a more rapid fashion.
Could you repeat?
Yeah, what was the delay in the communication? Why was it that it took so long to get here?
To get to this point. We do citywide communications as a cooperative effort, and so with the direction from the city, we are here today and answering questions. But I would say that our communications team at Austin Energy specifically have been available and have responded to every request, every media request that we've had, either with formal interviews that have been broadcast or with written information and documentation, and answered every single request. We've also published information on social media, and we've used press releases, and we've put banners on our website and shared information that way as well.
Can I ask a follow-up?
go ahead.
Why is it that communication went to city leaders like the city council and mayor before it came to the general public?
I think you all know that the mayor and the city council, the chair of our utility oversight committee, are our governing body, and that keeping them informed is very important because they help us then reach the broader audience of our community and we appreciate their help and support in that way.
CBS.
Going back to the outage map, the map has hovered basically between 150,000 to 165,000 throughout kind of the last day. We're hearing from residents, on the ground and also on social media saying, I'm without power, but you still don't see mine on the map. Does this mean there's more people without power than reported on the map, or how does that work?
So when you look at the outage map, you'll see that there are outages, and then the size of those outages and the numbers of customers impacted. So although a specific address isn't pinpointed and showing up specifically, if there's a large outage that is near your residence or commercial business, then we have that captured within that data. We had unusually high amount of inquiries and access. We overloaded the system. We had to engage our vendor to help us manage that. And the system is now up and working more appropriately. There may still be glitches from time to time, and certain customers may not get the information they're looking for, but overall, concerted effort and the information should be correct.
Or do you text them then, Fox?
You mentioned that obviously this is not a power grid issue like it was 2 years ago, and you also mentioned that the record amount of precipitation building up on the power lines is causing issues. How does that compare to the precipitation or the down power lines we saw 2 years ago?
So 2 years ago, if you'll remember, we had ice and snow. We had rain, then freezing rain, then ice and snow prior to the call from ERCOT to shed, controlled load shed. We had every customer restored before that event started. We were able to do that. It wasn't as widespread across our entire service territory like this has been, from northern part of San Antonio all the way up into northeast Texas and other communities. It was more isolated to the western side of our utility, so a smaller footprint, and we were able to address that. So the outages that occurred during Winter Storm Uri were from the required load shed directives that we received from ERCOT in order to maintain the stability of the grid.
How much is this going to cost to fix this?
I don't have those numbers at this time.
Fox?
Initially, I wanted to know what the plans were to ramp up. After seeing what can happen, what ramp up the clearing of vegetation. But now I want to know, are homeowners, or are they the obstacle? Are they not letting you? And what kind of legal recourse do you have? Can you just tell them this is a danger, we need to clear this, and we are going to? Or are they saying, no, you can't?
So we have policies that are given to us that direct our our vegetation management programs. And because we want to preserve the beautiful urban canopy that we have here, we often are only allowed to do V-cuts for certain portions of the line, so trees that are under lines, and that weakens the trees. And so in cases like this, it actually adds to the potential problem. We'll be working with our policymakers to help us with that, but certainly helping us educate the community of the importance of that and the need for that is going to be something that we would appreciate your help with.
You go right here with the sound and KVUE.
Hi, Carolina with Univision. Quick question. Right now, we know Austin Energy already got approved by the city 2 hikes, so people are going to see an increase in their monthly bills. This is from already. Are you expecting now that we're going to have another price increase? I know you just mentioned that you don't have an estimate of how much this reparations are going to cost, but is that something clients should be, getting ready for, even though right now they don't have electricity?
So, rates are something that are always challenging. We have different types of rates. So when you're talking about 2 rate hikes, I would want to clarify that last fall what we did was we did an adjustment to the power supply adjustment. As you know, Austin Energy is a not-for-profit utility, and during Winter Storm Uri, our generation performed very well, which is a benefit for our community and our customers. As a result of that, all funds that we received as a result of that strong performance of our generation yielded us a net positive revenue. Over the course of the following year, in our fiscal year 2022 or rate year 2022, we refunded those dollars, dollar for dollar, exactly dollar for dollar, back to our customers. So we artificially set the power supply adjustment low, and the actual cost of power in the marketplace was much higher. So when all that money was given back to customers, we had to reset that power supply adjustment to meet the cost, because again, it's a dollar for dollar.
So are we expecting perhaps another power increase? That's the main question, like, was this?
Not at this time, no.
I'm going to go to KVUE. Before I go, just remember, we do have other directors here that can also respond to debris recovery and things like that. KVUE?
And so for the people who don't have power, right, and they are having trouble with the outage map because if it doesn't show their address or something like that, how are they able to track the essential progress of when their power may be restored? I know we're expecting everything to be restored by Friday at 6, but a lot of times in a normal situation, you're able to check that map and it gives you an estimated time and it tells you a crew's been assigned and things like that. That information is not working for everyone. What can they do?
So you're asking about estimated restoration times. So when we go into storm mode like this, where we have such widespread outages and damage from vegetation and the ice across the system, we turn that feature off because we cannot until we get patrols out there to understand every individual outage and what it's going to take to restore it, we can't give those estimates. So anything that would come out of the system would be inaccurate. So we intentionally turn that off until we get out of storm mode. Right now, the information on the outage map has been rectified and should be correct, and people should be able to enter their information and get information with regard to their outage. And I want to remind you that I talked about the big outages. If there's a big outage showing on the map that's close to your residence or where you are without power, then it's safe to assume that we are aware of your outage and it's in the process of being prioritized to be restored.
Go with Trigan.
How did the online and texting reporting system crash, and what is going to be done in the future to prevent it from crashing?
So we have been working with our vendor, and right now it is up and working. The texting feature is a bit challenging because if you're going to text out information, you want to have accurate information. And this has been a very fluid situation, and we've seen the precipitation and the temperatures change and impacting the system. And I talked about the restoration efforts that we have and how as we move through the system, circuits that have been restored now become out of service. And so it really is like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. So we don't want to be sending information inappropriately that your power has been restored and then all of a sudden it is no longer restored because something else on the system has occurred.
We'll do last question right here, KG.
Can you tell me a little bit about why your power outage reporting system went down? What was the causes, and is it going to go down again in the coming days?
It was a challenge with our vendor and the overload of the system and how many people were accessing that system at the same time. So we've been working with our IT department, with the vendor of that system, and we believe that we have that corrected at this time. We will include that in part of our after-action review that we will do, and we will look at how we can ensure better performance of that system going forward into the future.
All right, folks, thank you all.
Hang on one second. I've received a lot of questions about what's going to happen with. I've received a lot of questions about what's going to happen with solid waste service and with picking up trash and what we're going to do about the debris of the things that have fallen. And it would be very beneficial if y'all would help let people know what the status of that is. So if it's okay, I would ask Director Snipes to just say a few words.
Good morning, Director Ken Snipes with Austin Resource Recovery. Just want to let everyone know that we are resuming our collection services starting today. Due to the weather impacts, we suspended services a bit early on Tuesday. We're going to pick up today where we left off on Tuesday. For those who have large storm debris, we ask that you cut those items up and get them to the curb, and we will collect them. If you are unable to take care of that yourself due to either a disability or financial means, etc., then the city is currently working on an agreement with a nonprofit to help and assist with those.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything? Okay. And we're going to actually ask our Austin Water Director to say a few words as well. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning. Austin Water operations has been in 24/7 operations since the event began. Our treatment plants have operated normally and put plenty of water into the system. Unlike Winter Storm Uri, we have not seen the widespread pipe breaks on the private side and on the public side. We do have several dozen pump stations that move water around our system, and we have been working very closely with Austin Energy to restore power to those pump stations when it has gone out. We are still working very diligently to keep storage tanks full throughout our system, and we will continue to work on those restoration efforts until the power is firm for us again. So we continue to monitor storage tank levels in all areas of our system.
Any other directors? Please.
James Snowden, Director of Public Works. Just let you know that we've had crews on working throughout Tuesday to deal with the road conditions. We now, because we're in recovery operations, are switching to clearing debris in the right of way. As we've been talking about, we're working with ARR to make sure that debris is cleared. We ask the public not to touch that debris. Rather, if you could call 311. Right now, we're prioritizing our crews to first direct the major right-of-way, which is arterials, and then move into the neighborhoods. As Ken said, we're also working with a nonprofit to help those who need assistance, because we are focused at Public Works on just the public right-of-way and not the private property. But if anybody has frustrations, please call 311. We are taking those lists. We are prioritizing it and making sure that we remove the debris as quick as possible. We brought in additional people to help with that, and we'll continue throughout the night. During the night, we'll be just focused on emergency situations, because obviously during the day it's easier to clear that, and we're working with our partners with Travis County and TxDOT to address those issues.
Is there anything people can do to help with that debris? Is there any debris that they can or should
We prefer not to, because of unsafe conditions. Even our crews out there, we're just making sure they're safe. If we, especially because sometimes there's internal power lines with this, so we want to make sure just be safe. We ask our crews to be the same. We also have activated our tree removal service contract to help us with the additional resource to get this done as soon as possible.
Road conditions seem pretty fine right now. That wasn't obviously always the case this week. Can you talk about how you have treated the roads and what you found worked and didn't work?
We've been working with TxDOT and the county. We've been lucky in the city. Most of our roads have been passable. What we've been focused on is the elevated highways and some of the low-lying areas. We've been treating those throughout the time. We have crews that have been through the time taking temperatures, because obviously the road temperature is the key for whether the ice sticks or not, and then reporting back. We've been addressing it on a one-on-one basis, but we've been focused on the arterials so people get through the city and passable. And now but we have we've had little issues as far as the roads, as far as that. Now it's more of the debris that's been the biggest issue that we've been addressing.
KG.
This question is for anyone. What would you say to anyone who has been without power for 24 hours now and may not be getting it back tonight?
Yeah.
And then can you provide the cold weather shelter?
Yeah, sure. Janet Pichette with Austin Public Health. We currently have cold weather shelters operational right now. Those cold weather shelters will continue through the evening and through Friday, and they will operate from. You can go and register for access to that shelter by going to One Texas Center at 505 Barton Springs Road between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. If you're able to get transportation there, you can get your car, get there, and you will have transportation through Cap Metro from that location onto a assigned shelter. If you are in need of sheltering tonight and there isn't a shelter and you don't have electricity, the one thing you can do is and you don't have transportation, is you can call 311 and we'll help make assistance to make arrangements to get you to a sheltering location. During the day, between 9 and 5 today, we have 4 warming centers that are operational, so those who need to get some respite from being without electricity can go to one of 4 locations. One's at Little Walnut Creek Branch Library, which is located at 835 West Runberg Lane. The second is at Terrazas Branch Library, which is at 1105 East Cesar Chavez. The third, Turner Roberts Recreation Center at 7201 Colony Loop Drive. And the Central Library located at 710 West Cesar Chavez. Those will be operational, as I said, between 9 and 5 p.m. today. Should you need extended sheltering operations and a warm place to stay tonight, again, you can make your way to One Texas Center at 505 Barton Springs Road, and you will be provided transportation to a sheltering location so that you can have a warm place to stay tonight.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
If you all need anything else, just feel free to contact some of the communication staff that are here. Thank you all.
All right, just now listening to a live press conference. A lot of key players there from both the county and the city. Some of the highlights we want to let you know, some of the most important information here. The CEO of Austin Energy, Jackie Sargent, said she feels like this is like a 2 steps forward, 3 steps back situation, saying that pretty much sometimes their crews are going out to restore energy only to walk away and then find out that it has just kind of it's out again.
Gone out again,
so
yeah.
it's like they're making some progress and then it doesn't happen. She says they have 85 crews in service. 32 crews are in from other utilities.
They came here yesterday, yes.
Yes, and some from San Antonio. More are coming in today from Houston, so they are getting the help there. But these extended outages are proving to be very challenging for everyone.
Look at the numbers right now. 153,000 customers are affected, but she did say that 113,000 customers were restored over the past day. But the reason the crews are getting frustrated is because, again, some of that power went back off, went back on, went back off. A lot of people, the mayor, Kirk Watson, there said it's been a challenging 3 days, and he was frustrated mainly with the lack of communication. He said that's something they're going to be working on.
He did say that at first he waited. He said, I'm going to wait and kind of defer to others. And I think he's realizing now, no, you just kind of have to get in there.
Right.
Don't defer to other experts in this situation because the lack of communication has really been frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, we're now just hearing from them. This started on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned one thing that was interesting. I know a lot of you were asking us about why don't they just bury the power lines? I asked the same question.
Right.
She said, so many challenges. The limestone here in Texas, it's extremely expensive. Potential flooding. I mean, we know we flood here, so there are some challenges with actually doing something like that.
She said it would be billions of dollars just in this area. It's cost prohibitive. The newer homes, yes, they do that, but the old developments to retrofit them simply would not be worth the money. Now, a lot of questions are, however, what do we do with all the debris? Because there are so many major
Valid
trees.
question.
You've got some, we've got some, and you heard from one of the gentlemen there with the city collections department, and they said to tear them all down, break them apart, bring them to the curb. Now, there are rules, okay? There are 2 different sets of rules. He did not specify which one. Large brush collection, which if you're in the city comes twice a year. That is you can have 15 feet long and a 4-foot high stack. And you put the cut ends towards the curb, by the way. That is twice a year. However, we're not sure if that's the case because a certain truck has to pick that up. The other option is the yard compost, which they do I believe every 2 weeks. And in that case, it's only 5 feet long and 3 inches thick. Now, 3 inches thick, that is a very thin branch. Our trees are much thicker than that.
Also, you have to think about people who physically can't do that.
Right.
I mean, I know you can. I probably can't. But if you can't do that, they're saying that they're working with a nonprofit to see if they can help out with all that debris pickup.
Right, but you're talking about, I mean, with this much debris, I can't imagine how long that would take for them to get to you. And the danger is, again, if it's on a power line or leaning against a power pole, please call at least 311. If you see it down one, you can call 911. But if you see it near a power pole, don't touch it no matter what.
Real quick, one thing that really got my attention is when Jackie Sargent said, well, we weren't really sure, we weren't prepared with this kind of weather. I beg to differ because I know that Shane Hinton is here. We were talking about this for quite some time. You gave us fair warning and you explained this is going to be a significant storm.
That's right, you guys. So we've actually been here in the KVUE weather team, the entire KVUE weather team, been talking about the potential for some ice accumulation totals in addition to the National Weather Service. They've been talking about how, those totals did start increasing throughout the forecast period, but by Tuesday morning, there was pretty relatively high confidence about the potential for ice accumulation up to a half an inch, maybe even 3/4 of an inch for some locations closer to the I-35 corridor, which would include Austin. Let's get you a quick look at what we're currently monitoring. We still have that winter storm warning in effect for the I-35 corridor and a majority of the Hill Country. Mason County, you are no longer included in it. It is set to expire in the next 20 or so minutes. Okay, so we'll continue to monitor that for you. This is what the current Doppler radar has been looking like over the past several hours. You can see we did have some overnight precipitation, mostly in the form of cold rain east of I-35, but areas along I-35 and even some of our friends out there in the Hill Country did still see some additional ice accumulation, mostly anywhere from glazing to up to 0.2 of an inch is what the National Weather Service projected for earlier this morning. In regard to the current Doppler radar, you can see we're still sitting at a light freeze in Fredericksburg, Blanco, and Georgetown, but overall temperatures are on the incline, and that's what we need to see right now because we desperately need that melting to occur. And we will thankfully be trending even warmer as we head into the afternoon. As we zoom in a little bit closely, you can see where we're monitoring some of that activity. It's very light and cold in nature along the I-35 corridor near Austin, but still dealing with a little bit of freezing rain, maybe some freezing drizzle in the western portion of Williamson County. Extending a little bit further out towards the Hill Country, Mason County probably dealing with our heaviest amounts of frozen precipitation. But as I mentioned, that should start to taper off as the rest of the day progresses. In fact, let's take a look at the futurecast together. By around midday into lunchtime, that's when we're talking temperatures, hopefully area wide above freezing. We're talking mid to upper 30s, so it's still cold. An area of low pressure is moving toward our north, and that's going to continue shifting out towards the east. The wraparound moisture, basically the counterclockwise movement of an area of low pressure, could bring a little bit of additional moisture to some of our northern counties, but I'm not concerned with this because temperatures are still expected to be in the mid to upper 30s, so we're not expecting a freeze from it. For the most part, we'll be done with the freezing precipitation within the next couple of hours, maybe a lingering sprinkle or two out there in the Hill Country by lunchtime, but I think most of us will be out of the woods by that point. Fast forward, I should say, toward the early evening hours. Then we're talking clear but cold conditions. We could possibly see another light freeze area wide overnight. I think that's going to be our next concern here in the KVUE Weather Center, is making sure that we're monitoring just how much of this ice is able to melt if temperatures stay at or below freezing overnight tonight. Hourly forecast shows that we will climb into the upper 30s to lower 40s, eventually tapering off into the upper 30s by 10 o'clock. But as I mentioned, I do expect us to get a lot colder overnight with temperatures in the 20s expected in the Hill Country and lower 30s along and east of I-35. For this afternoon, expect upper 30s to lower 40s, maybe even the mid 40s as we make our way down to the southern portion of the I-35 corridor. Winds from the north and northwest 10 to 15 miles per hour. So if you are going to be doing any of that cleanup in your yard or around the home, trying to make sure you're knocking down any tree limbs, keep in mind that it could be fairly breezy at times with gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Not only could that mean tree limbs continue to fall, you'll want to make sure you avoid walking under or parking under them if you can for at least the next couple of days. But also it's going to be cold out there, significant wind chill feeling like it's in the 30s. 7-day forecast is looking a little bit more optimistic, right? We could drop down to a light freeze tonight. In fact, we could see another light freeze on Friday night into Saturday, but plenty of sunshine expected for Friday and temperatures in the afternoon in the mid 50s, which is great news. We should get a lot more evaporation. That sunlight is really going to be beneficial for us. But the freeze tonight, or the potential for a freeze tonight, I should say, is going to be one of our biggest areas of concern coming up here after this winter storm warning expires at 10 o'clock, you guys.
All right, we appreciate that update. Again, this is going to be a very long and difficult stretch, as it has been for us as a community. As far as the restoration of power, Austin Energy is expecting, they are anticipating that the power will be restored to everyone by tomorrow, Friday night at 6 p.m. I know that that's not comforting to a lot of people because they're cold. They, people need, sometimes they need they need the electricity for many things.
Yeah, and it's not just Austin Energy. Remember, we're talking about right now, Pedernales 40,000 meters. Also at Encore has 26,000 in the Round Rock, Georgetown area alone. We're working hard to get updates on those. But again, last time I checked a few moments ago, the update was no information available as far as when it will be repaired. So as soon as the weather clears like it is now, that's the good news, but we just have to get the above freezing temperatures to stick around.
Please be safe. We're going to continue asking questions for you, getting more information. And again, we're going to be on midday at 11 a.m. So be sure to get an update with us then. Thanks for joining us.